The Attorney General of the United States will not enforce 18 U.S.C. 1507, that's the federal statute, been on the books a long time, that prevents protesters from intimidating justices, period. And these protesters are getting louder. They're actually getting more violent. They're protesting in the middle of the night when their kids in the neighborhood can't go to sleep and justices who have kids can't go to sleep. It's just incredible. And so, of course, it's escalating because they know, at least for now, that Merrick Garland's not going to do a damn thing about it. And we know that the opinion's coming out. My guess is Friday, as relates to Roe v. Wade. And we also know that there are domestic terrorist groups, anti-life, and what they're talking about is putting the pedal to the metal in order to increase not just protests, but violent protests. 50 churches, pregnancy centers, pro-life think tanks have been attacked, the least of which is with graffiti. Some of them have literally been firebombed. And it took the head of the FBI several weeks until he said he was kicking into action. Meanwhile, we're still focused on January 6th, as I said. Let's take a look at this. We have the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia on Fox and Friends weekend. Go.
There's a decision expected at the Supreme Court, maybe this week on Tuesday, on Roe v. Wade. And groups have been descending on Washington, D.C., not just outside the court, as you know, but at the homes of individual justices. Well, one group, Rise Up for Abortion Rights, made up of high schoolers, maybe even younger than that, many of which came from New York City, are now getting in front of Amy Coney Barrett's house. Here's a tweet with a video from that group saying, just arrived at Amy Coney Barrett's house, dropping off babies, reenacting the American nightmare of forcing girls to give birth against their will. Headed to the Supreme Court, meet us there. Lieutenant Governor, there's images we may show. It's grotesque. It's over the top. It's young girls. It's babies. It's blood. And it's intimidation of a Supreme Court justice. What do you make of all this?
This is our future. I have no words. I have no words.
First of all, they're marching with baby dolls. I'm a little perplexed by this, honestly. If you're marching with baby dolls and you're holding them out, isn't that the opposite of abortion? I guess their perspective is it's an aborted baby. I'm not sure what it is. But there you had, what, a dozen or less marching like that. They had the cameras there, so they knew what they were doing, obviously. And what are they, 15, 16, 14 years old? Go ahead.
These grotesque images that these young girls are carrying. And I wonder, what country am I living in? And what is the mindset? What is the mindset that would cause this to happen? And where are their parents? And then I think to myself, it must be that their parents feel the same and think the same as they do. And don't they realize the irony of this? The reason why you are here is because at some point your mother was pro-choice. And that's why you, my dears, are here. Otherwise, you would not be.
Yeah, they're there because their mothers are pro-choice, pro-abortion. But they're actually there because their mothers went through with the birth, right? They're pro-choice, but in their own lives, at least when it came to these babies who became teenagers, they were pro-birth and pro-life. Go ahead.
They don't see that. I'm telling you, our country is confused and it's grotesque.
I could not agree more. But here's the good news for some, not to me. If you want an abortion in America, you can get an abortion. It's just that the Supreme Court said, don't look to us, because there's nothing in the United States Constitution that gives us power to make that decision. So we take a pass, which is exactly what the Supreme Court had done forever until Roe versus Wade, and now this court is correcting it. But you need to understand that the people pushing abortion today don't really even support Roe versus Wade, as I've explained in the past. Why is that? Roe v. Wade comes up with a convoluted model, which is 3 trimesters. The first trimester, they argue it's not a baby. The second trimester, it's not a baby. The third trimester, it's a viable baby. And it's in that third trimester where they argue that there's a state interest. So states can regulate abortion when it comes to the third trimester. Is that what people are arguing today? The anti-life, pro-abortion movement, is that what they're arguing today? No, they're arguing for abortion right up to the last minute, right up to the last second. They're not even arguing just in the case of rape or incest or the health of the mother, medical situation where you actually have to make a choice whether the mother's going to live or the baby's going to live. No, none of these complex ethical issues, right up to the last minute, right up to the last second. And there's never, ever an explanation on what that means. The American people are not exposed to what that means. Even though the American people do not support abortion at the last second, by the way, called partial birth abortion. What does it mean? It means taking a syringe like this, pushing it into the top of the head of the baby, the soft part where the skull hasn't closed, pulling the syringe and sucking out the brain. Then the baby's turned around in the mother's womb and pulled out by its feet. Now, I think if enough people saw that, I think people would be rising up against it. The science tells us, the science with the masks and the vaccines, that that's a baby. A human baby. Whatever the choice, whatever the psychology, whatever the emotion, it's a baby. And unless you acknowledge it's a baby, how are you even going to address this in some rational way? We've seen plenty of video, I remember as a kid, of a mother giving birth on public TV. The wonders of it. And they showed, to the extent they could, the baby growing in the mother's womb. Do you remember shows like that, guys? I do. What it is the first month, second month, third month. And of course, at some point, it has human characteristics. You can see them. The face, the hands, the feet. And then they show that it feels. And we know from science that it feels pain. And so partial birth abortion is torturing that baby before it is born. That's what it is. We can't even agree on that. I know many of you agree, or some of you anyway, disagree with me. But my point is, it's not really for the court to mandate abortion on demand throughout the country, nor is it Congress's business to do it. This is quintessentially a state issue. And decisions are made by people who live in the states, because some people live in states that are more conservative than others. Some people live in states that are more liberal than others. California, New York, Illinois, abortion on demand. Not so in other states. Why is that a problem? You see, from my perspective, depending on what the court ultimately says, but I read the draft, it was brilliant, but it was a moderate decision. They said, we're not involved in this. So we overturn or we reverse these prior decisions. And Casey is another one, because we shouldn't have decided those cases at all. So that now means it's all up to the states. State legislatures, state governors, state courts, and not up to the U.S. Supreme Court. There's nothing in the Constitution that talks about this. Nothing. And that's a very, not just a reasonable, it is really the only constitutional position you can have. But that's not exactly right either. You know what the court could have said? The court could have said, under the 5th and 14th Amendments, we have the Equal Protection Clause. And that's a baby. And the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment applies to the states. You don't have a right to kill a human being as a choice.
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.